Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for January 4th, 2022. I keep writing or typing 2021, and it's a habit I want to get out of. Let's let it go, shall we? So welcome back, everyone. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate all of your participation and your support, regardless if you are a regular viewer or if this is your first time here. It's really, really great to have you here, and I so appreciate you. So wow, there are some incredible Lyran starseed activations today. So we're going to talk about that today, and yeah, it's. I wasn't really sure what exactly I was going to say, and I've stopped actually trying to plan that, to be perfectly honest. Because it comes through in the moment, right? In the moment where we're spontaneous, where we're just letting our authenticity flow, and that's the benefit of streaming, and which is why I'm really actually excited to move off of YouTube onto Twitch, because that entire platform is built specifically for this experience that we're having right here. Of course, if you're catching this on the replay, it doesn't make it any less valid, and the energy transmission itself is going to transcend space and time, as it always does. But there's something so special about the live broadcast where you can interact with your audience, the audience can interact with you as the broadcaster in real time, and there's something very special about it. But one thing I will say about the energy transmission, somebody had sent me a message yesterday, and they were watching the replay much later in the day, and they were like, I can literally feel, the first 5 minutes can literally feel your energy, even though it was hours from when the actual broadcast was happening. So that's something to consider as well. I get a lot of questions, and strangely enough, I don't think it's that strange actually, but quite a few people who are in the woo, as we talked about yesterday, referencing Cliff High's perspective, but really just when I say in the woo, just in the flow of it, in the flow of source, in the flow of the divine matrix that makes up all of our experiences in reality, right? The Akash, the morphogenic field, the quantum realm, however you want to look at it. We're all here and we're all participating, but some people are more aware and conscious of it than others. And even those people, what I have found is there's actually an incredible amount of distrust for the modality, I guess you could call it, of Reiki. So that has come up a few times in private conversations and in my interactions with people because of different reasons. Either they're not in the woo at all and they have no experience whatsoever with energy medicine, but also sometimes it's the opposite, right? Where people are fully steeped in the woo and they've had some really bad experiences with the modality of Reiki being misused and exploited, and how seemingly easy it is to call yourself a master after just being able to throw money at your attunement and your experience. And that's not to in any way degrade or invalidate people's experiences if they've moved through their Reiki training and their attunements, for instance. But I will say from my personal experience, I spent a lot of time at my first level, 15 years at my first level, seeing clients in an environment where I was going through bodywork clients and practicing Reiki with them. So I can understand both of those positions because I've had both of those clients many times over in my treatment space, and it usually turns out really, really well for the most part. So I don't even know why that came up. I think it's just because it's been a question on many people's minds and has continued to come up. Oh, the reason I brought it up is because Reiki, especially distance Reiki, and anybody that's had actual work with me, you can go check my testimonials if you have any doubt that the distance Reiki seems like that it may be less impactful, or really that you're just scamming people. And that's certainly a possibility. I mean, that's not what I'm doing. And I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I'm very tapped into my guidance system, and in this whole process with distance Reiki. But Reiki and this type of energy work, which is simply channeling source energy, right? There's no manipulation of anybody's field from my personal skill set. It is definitely channeling source energy. So it transcends space and time. And so you can receive it in real time. You can receive it when you need to. And that is the beautiful and powerful thing about Reiki. So it's the same thing with these energy transmissions. It's an energetic transmission. Yes, if you are in the part of the container of the experience in real time, it's going to have a very specific impact on you. But what I have found, just like with Reiki and especially distance work or remote energy work, especially with Reiki, I can't speak for other types of modalities because I don't practice them. I do have some shamanic experiences that I'm able to do also through the astral, because that's where most shamanic work happens, is in that realm. Again, outside of a material time and space, I guess you could say. But the transmission comes across regardless, and it transcends the fabric of space-time. So even if you're not here live, you still get the impact and the benefit of the transmission energetically later. So I didn't plan on talking about that. I'm glad it came up, though, because I think that it's been coming up in a number of conversations with clients and friends and colleagues. And so I just felt like that was important to draw attention to, and to learn more about these particular modalities if you have any questions or concerns about their validity. And just like any tool, any single tool can be used to heal and to help, and it can be used to destroy and to manipulate and exploit. And so it's even possible with something like Reiki, where you're channeling divine source energy. So anyway, that just wanted to bring attention to that. So how's everyone doing? How are you feeling? It's going to start getting a little bit more dense now, right? Yesterday was kind of like this out the gate, like, wow, we are on point now to do what we're supposed to be doing in 2022, right? We talked about the year of the water tiger. There's an incredible amount of synchronicity coming up with the imagery that I'm going to share with you with today's astrology and fixed star Vega, the Lyran star seeds, and how important that particular star signature is right now, because it's going to give us the root system, and not even just the root system, but the entire system as a whole, to stabilize us and to give us the courage, the ambition, and the fearlessness to really stand in our power. Because remember, Capricorn is about power. And we can either gather our power from within and from source directly, or we can, exploit people to give their power over to us. And that's really a choice that we all have to make. And we have to be very mindful of what that looks like and feels like, because sometimes we can be deceived in that process. But it's going to start getting more dense in some ways, and what's going to come through, I feel, for the intuitive part of the transmission and the reading that I had this morning, is that it really is our own mastery, our own power, our own ability to be stable and in our power, that is going to really hold us steady as a lot of things on the outside start to really fall apart, and people's mental ability to handle that is also really challenged, right? The moon is in Aquarius right now, so we still have this moment throughout the day where, moments, I would say, throughout the day where we're going to still have that sense of emotional detachment, and not robotic. That's certainly the dark side of a moon in Aquarius, but more that we are the container for the feeling, and not the feeling itself or the emotion itself. But once the moon moves into Pisces, into tomorrow, and we have a meeting with Pallas Athena, we have the meeting with Neptune, right? The Pisces moon is going to sextile all of the Capricorn stuff. Really good opportunities, of course, in terms of feeling into our imagination, our capacity to channel divine source, to be in communion with God or Great Spirit, but also and to invest that into what we are doing at a very material level and at a structurally institutional level as well, right? With Capricorn involved, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult as the moon comes into Pisces for us to separate ourselves from the overall feeling that the collective experience is giving us. And so today is a good reminder, a good opportunity to harness some of these more important, I would say, astrological transits, especially with Mercury in Aquarius right now, is really giving our minds some focus and I don't want to say stability, that's not the right word, but it's certainly giving our mind and our conceptualization a very strong singular focus, right? A singular focus that also is a collective focus as well, but it is that laser point of the third eye that Aquarius really represents. And have the Mercury there right now is a really important gift, because Mercury is going to station retrograde not too long from now, right? 11 degrees Aquarius. So and we'll go back into Capricorn and is going to meet Pluto in that position, right? And come back and meet Pluto again. I'm pretty sure. I have to go back and look at that, so don't quote me on that, but definitely once in its retrograde back in. So there's still more of Mercury and Pluto going on, right? The raw transformational power. Pluto's about power. It's the final word, honestly. But what we're going to find today as we explore the archetypal references to Vega and the constellation Lyra and what is a Lyra, or what is a lute, and talking about Orpheus, right? There is, once you are able to transcend the strictly materialistic aspect of reality, even when that is encompassing, I would say, what Pluto represents is the power of the death cycle, right? The death and rebirth cycle. Even past that is where we are able to transcend that. That's Aquarius and that is Pisces. And we are moving into the age of Aquarius. We're not quite there yet. I think that Pluto's got to get into Aquarius first before we can even start talking about getting into the age of Aquarius officially. But and I would imagine that many astrologers have different opinions about what this transition, when it's going to happen and what it's going to be like. But it's going to be interesting. So let's get right into it. I'm going to check in with the chat real quick and see what's going on. Reiki is the best. She'll talk to your demon ladies. Man. You know what's funny about that is not only did we had a conversation, but when I first met that, Alex is referencing this demon lady. When I first met that entity, I mean, she was just like right there. For real though, the woo is strong right now. Exciting energy unfolding. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's very exciting. It's very rapid. Now, outside of us, it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. And you can feel it. You can see and feel into the distinction. All you have to do is kind of step back into a strictly 3D type of environment, like the news and people who are awesome influencers and content creators, but they're very strictly on the much more down on earth material aspect of it. And you'll see that it's looking pretty dire. And that's going to be reflected not only in the reading, but also just in general. You will feel it. So yes, I had a conversation with the demon lady, not even realizing who they were. And this is a really important point of reference. And I really appreciate Alex being so willing to share this, because entity attachments, a lot of times, especially if they're multi-generational or have been there for a long time, they don't seem like they're a bad thing or negative at all. And in fact, they can be read in a lot of ways as if they are meant to be there, because a lot of times we allow these attachments to be here. And we all have them in different ways, different forms, for different reasons. And it's important to realize that we do allow them. And sometimes we come into this life with those attachments to our ancestral lineage or something that happened really early. I mean, the Chiron wound is a big part of this in the natal chart a lot of times. But sometimes you don't even realize that they're not supposed to be there until they've been seen, until certain things start to bubble to the surface. And I would say that Alex probably can attest to this experience, that we both went through it together, of like discovering these aspects about his particular energetic topography, if you will. It's very interesting. So yes, that is the shamanic side of my work, right? Reiki allows me to channel source energy. In that process, I'm also getting a ton of intuitive information, and we can go from there with that information. But I've also done a lot of shamanic work in that realm, right? Where I've cut cords with people. I've done psychic surgery. I've had interactions with entities that aren't supposed to be there. So as our work went along, there was a different relationship with that particular attachment, which is, that's between me, Alex K, and that attachment. So, but I really appreciate his willingness to share that, because that was, there's some powerful work that we have been doing together. And it's been really cool. Great to see you. Was desperately flipping through Telegram looking for the right date when the Facebook notification came up. So low tech I am. I know, and I don't, and oh my gosh. I wish there was a way that I could. Somebody actually just made this suggestion to me yesterday, and now that you've said that, I might actually take them up on the suggestion, which was to do some content, like some really easy content about how to use all these platforms. Your jump off Facebook is inspiring, as we all need to jump in some way right now. Yeah, and I've gotten a couple personal messages really that are like, I'm doing this too. How do I stay in touch with you? Or, blah, blah, blah. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'll take a step back away from the woo, as it were, for just a minute, and kind of just do a really basic kind of tutorial on how to use these different platforms, because I am going to be collaborating in the near future with those who are much more into the digital freedom aspect of things. And so I'm excited about that collab. And so this actually fits in really well to maybe talk about my experience moving away from these platforms. So the Pisces Cap connection seems like very strong realignment opportunities and shifting opportunities. I totally agree. And especially because we have Juno in Capricorn, which is at the position where the Sun and Venus are going to conjunct later this week. We have Pallas Athena that is very traveling very close in a sextile to Juno. She's in Pisces, Juno's in Capricorn, these two goddess asteroids. They're traveling in a very close sextile together through their transit. And so I think that there's going to, just like you said, Barb, very realigning and a lot of shifting opportunities. And with the moon in Pisces, we have the opportunity to really directly submerge ourselves into the mystical woo experience. And depending on how you've managed yourself so far with Pallas Athena in Pisces, certainly Jupiter now in Pisces, so close to coming into conjunction with Fomalhaut, which is one of the 4 royal fixed stars. We'll talk about that tomorrow, because that's going to start getting closer in alignment. There's just, especially now with Jupiter here, and I really appreciate your feedback about this, because I think that Jupiter in Pisces now is going to is going to expand these opportunities in the realm of the spiritual and the collective unconscious a lot more than the last time around when the moon was in Capricorn, or was in Pisces. And of course, Mercury was not in Aquarius last time that the moon was in Pisces. So there's just different energy that's happening. So let's now I checked in with the chat. I was able to flush out the trolls, right? They might as well get it in now because the streaming is going to go away on YouTube. I will still absolutely be uploading the weekly astrology. I think I'm going to shift that into a recording and not do that particular set of information live. I'm just going to do the horoscopes bi-weekly like I started, and that's going to be kind of where what stays on YouTube. But the streaming that I'm going to be doing on Twitch, that I plan on doing on Twitch, there's so much built around streaming in particular. I'm going to be recording all of those and only putting them up on BitChute probably. I'm trying to really wean myself off of YouTube along with other people because and Facebook too, right? Part of the reason that we're in this position is that we continue to feed their algorithms and they continue to learn about who we are by our participation in their systems. And even though there was a time where staying on that battlefield was really important, I feel like it's over now, right? That's what it feels like to me, and that's why I'm just going with it and just being like taking the leap, just like Barb said. We got to jump, right? We got to jump. So we're gonna get into the reading. And then we're going to look at this really cool astrology, Lyran starseed stuff. There's going to be much more starseed related content on the streams in particular. I have a show that I'm going to start doing. I'm not going to unveil it until it's ready to go, but it is very starseed related, and I'm excited about it. And some good collabs that are coming down the pipeline in different ways. So, I feel like this is the case for many people right now. If you've been like on the trajectory, then and you've managed to align with your own power, your karmic contracts, like to be aware of them, to do the deep work, the shadow work. It's going to be a really powerful year, right? The year of the water tiger. Now there are, like I said, I'm not a Chinese astrologer, and I'm not going to claim to be, but I do have experience and trained experience in Chinese medicine through shiatsu and stuff. So I have a working knowledge of the Chinese philosophy and elemental theory, and of course, astrology, right? It's all same basic thing. There's 12 signs in Chinese astrology. They're just on a lunar calendar instead of a solar calendar like Western astrology is. So there are two animals. There are two signs in Chinese astrology, and this is gonna be awesome. And then we'll ground ourselves. We'll do our grounding exercise and get into the reading. I just have to share this now because it's so awesome, and you'll know exactly why. So there are two particular Chinese astrological signs that are really going to struggle this year because they struggle with the tiger in general, which is the monkey and the snake. So, I mean, it's not that much of a stretch at this point to see how those two particular aspects may have a challenging time with such a predatory, fierce, powerful, sovereign type of animal, right? In Chinese astrology, just like in Western astrology with the lion and Leo, the tiger is the king, right? The tiger is the king of the jungle. And water is a yin element in terms of Chinese, yin and yang. But there's so much. It's just like Western astrology. It really is so much more complicated as a symbolic language and an energetic modality than just like reading a couple websites, but that's what I did. So, I mean, this is how we learn, right? We take one step at a time, as is reflected in this reading, actually. So this is a really good way to think about things right now, one step at a time, but all those small steps lead up to something big. And it's very easy to get caught up in the big picture without being able to understand the small steps and how valuable they are, and vice versa, right? That we start losing sight of the big picture because we don't see the type of results that we want to see. And I think that's a function of our current modern culture, unfortunately. And it may be a part of the human condition as well, that we are expecting immediate results and that we get easily discouraged and we can't see the forest for the trees type of thing. So that's a big part of today's reading too. And Lyran starseeds are the people that know exactly what it means, right? They know exactly what it means. They see the big picture, they see the entire fractal geometric pattern, and then they know exactly how to they feel into the energetic dynamic of this unfolding process in material reality, whatever it is, and they go for it, and they don't let anything hold them back, right? And Lyran starseeds in particular are very, very into their experience in the material, right? They have strong root chakras. If they are connected to this aspect of themselves, they know who they are. They know where they're secure. They're not afraid of the potential insecurity of other aspects of life because that root chakra is strong. And I've talked about this already once before. Part of the Reiki master attunement is a focus on a really strong, vibrant heart chakra, yes, absolutely. But for the master attunement is the root chakra, right? And I would even argue you can incorporate the earth star chakra into that as well. And that's usually what I do when I do my own master attunements on myself. So the fear is not because there's not realistic expectations. It's because you know that you have to push through fear, and there's a lot of courage. Now, Lyran starseeds will really, they have the potential to, they're like cats, right? The feline signature resonance is probably one of the more common aspects of the Lyran starseeds. This is why the year of the tiger is so important. This is why today's really strong Lyran activation with the sun in conjunction with Vega is so important and so powerful. Like there's just a lot of power in the sky right now in the astrology and energetically. And when the moon does come into Pisces, as was said already in the chat, that this is going to be a realignment moment, and it's going to be a very spiritual realignment moment with the aspects of material institutions that we actually want to be part of, right? We've acknowledged at this point that there is an old system falling away and has been for a while. We've acknowledged that there is a false system that is being overlaid in 2D to keep us, the attempt is to keep us, fixated on the illusion of reality that is very two-dimensional. It doesn't make it any less real. It's just like in the Matrix movies, right? It's all a digital code for the most part. And then there's the actual law of nature, God's law, the Great Spirit's law unfolding that we want to be in alignment with. But we have to actually act on some things, right? We have to be part of the unfolding process and not be passive. And the Lyran starseeds are able to really move us through this process. And really, one of the things I've talked about in the horoscope or the astrology forecast is Capricorn right now is going through, if you're a Capricorn rising person, especially Capricorn rising, but even Cap, Moon, and Sun, but especially Cap rising, the identity issues that have been overhauled as a result of Pluto have just reached a fever pitch in some ways right now with all of this Capricorn energy. And the Capricorn person is having such a dramatic overhaul of who they are and how they present themselves to the world, because the very nature of our institutional reality is going through the same thing. And so there's something very special about the Capricorn person right now that I have been getting serious insight into, just conversations, dream state, synchronicities, that they are, Taurus is our future, right? But the Capricorn person is going to lead once they realize and accept and align with their own identity overhaul. Because if they are able to follow the pathway of the destruction and the metamorphosis, then these cat people are seriously going to actually be leaders. And I'm really excited about that, actually. So this is a big part of the Lyran starseed, and not every Capricorn person is a Lyran starseed, and not every Lyran starseed has heavy Capricorn. There are other markings, so that's something that we can go over in my starseed show. I'm going to do a lot more focus on those things. So I want everybody to take a moment here before we get into the intuitive reading that came through this morning. That I'm very blessed and grateful to have this gift as basically as an oracle, among other things. I want everybody to take a moment here to make contact with the floor, the ground, wherever you find yourself, either your sits bones, which is what we called in yoga called your butt, but it's your ischium, right? It's the bones that you actually sit on, or your feet, making contact. Becoming very aware of that contact, feeling the surface area of the contact, and becoming in tune with that contact. And drawing your attention down through the layers of the earth, much like the layers of the skin, through the crust. As you make contact with your Earth Star chakra that's always there. It never goes away. We're always there. And give it our attention and love and focus for just a moment, and thanking it for being our connection to the planetary grid and to Gaia. All right. We're going to take a very nice deep breath in. And release. Thank you. Remember, this bowl, I say it every time, but you never know who's listening that's new. This bowl is tuned to C major, which is the resonance of our root chakra. So that's why I do, is to get that place nice and strong. So here we go. So here's our reading for today. Here's our 10 of discs, my friends. So now, the way that I do these readings, when they come out like this is how they lay, right? I don't place them in that position. They come out in that position. So the 10 of discs has been something coming up for quite a number of readings recently. So this is wealth, very simply. But the 10 of discs is really Mercury in Virgo, ruler of Virgo. And when we talk about Virgo, we talk about the mutable earth, or the malleable, changeable physical reality that we each initiate within ourselves. This is the path of service in Virgo. This is the path of healing, or convalescence. This is the actual routines, habits, daily practices, disciplines, right? The things that we do that put things where they belong. This is where we bear the fruit of all of our labor, is in Virgo. And the labor is on ourselves and in our own burgeoning consciousness and personality, especially in the chart. In the astrological chart, this is the 6th house in Western astrology. So when we talk about wealth, it can mean a lot of different things. Of course, the discs or the coins or the pentacles in the tarot do represent currency of some sort, but there's lots of different types of currency. And your wealth comes not just from the money in your bank account or even your physical assets, but it comes from your health and healing capacity. It comes from your energetic resources, your resources from your ancestry, your genetic resources. That's also, we spend a lot of time talking about how our genes work against us, but we don't spend enough time talking about how our genetics are amazing and allow us to do the things that we really do, and is the blueprint for, it is God's blueprint essentially for life that is able to hold a spiritualized consciousness, right? We don't talk enough about that. So, but the wealth is the actual process of accumulating these resources, whatever they are. And the 10 lets us know that this is the end of a cycle, right? The 1 and the 0, the cycle has come around and is completed. And so wealth, security, all of these are things that this particular card in a reading could mean. Completion of a material success, a healing journey that's been completed. There's a sense of well-being ultimately with this card. Now it's pointing off into the past, right? So it's not inverted. It's definitely letting us know that this experience is something that is not just a causal factor, but is is an energy that is much more in the past now and is facing that way, right? It's almost like we're not bringing anything other than the bottom of this into the moment, which in the Kabbalah, this is where we bring everything down. Like in the traditional Kabbalah, is my understanding, is that the beginning is the top and the end is the bottom, the Malkuth right here, bringing spirit down into form. So what we have is a more of a causal experience that has brought just this part of things into the present moment, into the heart of the matter, which is bringing all of this to bear in a very material way. But it also is going to, it does speak to the idea that it is very much in a past situation, and what we are bringing into the moment is not necessarily culmination, but specifically the material manifestation of that. And that's something that is really important to consider, because that's where we all kind of get stuck, because we live in a material world as far as we know. And it's important to realize that if we get stuck in the material, and Capricorn, right, this is what the devil is, right? This is what Satan is, right? This is the idea that if you get trapped in materialism as all there is, right? And this comes from rationalism and scientific materialism specifically. Not all scientists and not all scientific pursuits are materialistic. There are many people who have strong spiritual components to their lives who are also empiricists and scientists. Carl Jung is a really good example of actually, it's a good example of what happens when you really integrate these things. In a very, he made himself the subject of so many of his own experimentation, which actually I think really drove him kind of insane. So I'm going to post something on Telegram today that is Alan Watt actually reading Jung from like a New Year's Eve show in 2006. It was really eye-opening. And Jung comes from, I know this is a total aside, but Jung comes from a Masonic family, right? He comes from the mystical side of a Masonic family. His mother especially was very mystical. And so he has that component to him, and it's clearly part of his work to understand the psychological and the collective unconscious in reference to a lot of what his upbringing provided for him. So anyway, here we are coming into this present moment and bringing the material manifestation ultimately of what we have been working to create for ourselves. And this is not very easy. The Queen of Swords in her reversal position is very boy, she is the water of air, right? And so here's a couple of very obvious things here. She's up in the clouds. She's on this throne. She certainly isn't protecting herself other than with her sword. She's beheaded something or someone and has pulled this up into the sky. So she has this perspective that is so above everything else that she's very judgmental in that way. She's very clever. She has an incredible intellectual dominance, right? You can see that. She can literally just chop off the head of whatever and sit in her throne in the clouds to the point where she is bare-chested. She doesn't need anything to cover her or to protect her in this way because she is above everything else. There's this, like, I don't know if this is a cherub or what's going on up here at the head of her own throne, and there is just this sense of being above everything, but she is the water. This is the queen, the water of the air. So she may lack some practicality because there's no earth here, and there's a lack of willpower in some ways because there's no fire. But what she does have is the incredible intellectual dominance and the ability to form and create as a result of that water element, right? She can transform, she can reflect, and then she can reflect back, certain concepts and ideas. There is a Virgo to Libra energy that is with the Queen of Swords. Okay, so we see Virgo here into Libra. Now, again, with these reversals, you can read them in a number of ways depending on the context of the rest of the reading. But based on the futility that follows here, the moon in Aquarius, the 7 of Swords, there are 2 sevens in this reading. So also keep in mind that today there is a considerable amount of adjustment energy, trickster energy, something that needs to find its adjustment in a lack of fitting together. And the outcome is one of these. The 7 of Swords, and which is the moon in the last 10 degrees of Aquarius, is futility. And we'll get to the specifics about this. But when in this instance with the Queen of Swords reversed, I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a real lack of practicality when she's reversed, especially. And we run the risk of living in an idealistic land outside of reality and unable to protect ourselves from outside influences. There is something very important that we need to wrap ourselves around here and be very aware of, because when the moon does come into Pisces, it's going to be a lot harder, even more difficult to separate ourselves emotionally and intuitively and even subconsciously from these outside influences that may be too idealistic. Now, also, there is on the darkest side of this is cruelty and deceit. And I mean, she is just so, her emotions as the queen have influenced her idealism and her mental capacity. And this is where she chops off the head and doesn't even stick around to, face the consequences of it. She's just off back up onto her throne. So this is something that is very important to consider. Now, remember, this is the crux, the cross point. So even if it's something that's happening outside of our own experience, we're going to feel it anyway. It's going to be part of our experience because it's going to be the axis point of our own energetic polarity here, or our own energetic pole, like our own spinal cord is our energetic axis. So at the best case scenario is that we, as the Queen of Swords, for instance, are just becoming aware that maybe we're not as stable as we thought, or maybe we are being a little bit too idealistic, or maybe we are just being brought to realize that even though we are bringing the fruits of our labor, the manifested fruits of our labor into the current moment, if we apply some sort of out of balance mental perspective, this also can lead us to being maybe deceitful. Maybe we will be inaccessible. Maybe something about our mental state will be inaccessible. So there's a lot of ways this can go. But what I do feel very distinctly is that many people are going to get to this point, and they're really either going to live in la la land about things, and not be able to protect themselves from the next phase of propaganda and control and deceit, or is just going to lack the stability and the willpower to do anything with the manifested fruits of our labor in a cycle that has quite clearly ended and had given us plenty of those signals last week and the week before, with the 10 of Discs continuing to show up in these readings. So when we get now where our energetic axis is incredibly important. Okay, it's really, really important, because here's another queen, and it's the Queen of Forces. We've already talked about this badass bitch, right? And I say that with the highest amount of respect. And if you know me, you know that that's just like the word I use, right? Doesn't matter what, it's just you're badass. And I would not get into this woman's way, because she is a sorceress through and through, right? She's balancing literally the sun and the moon, creativity and receptivity. Again, she's a queen. She's standing in the element of water. So it is spirit, it is emotion, it is feeling, it is intuition that is the basis of this particular royal energy, the Queen of Forces. So what it represents is that in terms of our underlying, where we gather our power, what's happening at a subconscious level, where we are rooted energetically and can be. This is balancing creativity and receptivity and coming into a phase of great power. And this is really key, the ability to sustain it. It's one thing to have great power and then release it. It's another to be able to sustain this level of balance with amount of mastery. And this is where we can really energetically root ourselves. Again, this has Lyran starseed connections all over it, because they are really just have access to some of the oldest energy in a galactic sense, that they have just been around the galactic block. They just know what to expect. They've done it all. They've been informed. And you remember from the movie Contact, or if you've read the book, and Carl Sagan wrote the book, it is Vega. It's the star system of Vega that the main character Ellie travels to in the device, right? That takes her through the wormhole. She goes to Vega, and they do all the standard things that most of us actually have our contact through. It's through scenes that are in our subconscious that we're familiar with. They are with people that we are comfortable or familiar to us. This is how most contact, true contact, and some people more than others have more direct experience with physical beings, but most people are having contact in that same way. And they've been there for billions of years. If you remember, you called us. We sent you the plans to come see us. We've been here for billions of years. We're just here to assist in everybody else's process of becoming themselves in the galaxy. And this is a big, this is something so, it's almost timeless, right? And the unfolding of nature seems timeless. And it is, compared to our tiny little experience of reality. But this is where we can really root ourselves, the Queen of Forces. So we either embody this, there's somebody in our life that represents this, that we may have a synchronicity with, or some sort of guide that comes through in our life that embodies this type of energy. All of these things are relevant because the queens and the court cards are actual people. So they show themselves as actual people in some way, or show how we can embody this energy. So she is badass, and she sustains an incredible amount of power through balancing natural forces. where we can release this energy, or where our conscious attention is, or, awareness, the Two of Forces, right? The Willow. This is about being completely rooted and stabilized in the natural world, but also drawing our power from the water that is right next to us. We're strong, but yet flexible. We spread our roots deep and wide, right? We have a reinforcing foundation through our root system. We draw the waters, draw from the waters of our soul, right? This is an incredible symbol right now, and we stand confident in truth. And so we may not necessarily see everything about this Queen of Forces. It may be something more subconscious. It may be a part of ourself that's in our subconscious. We have to, if we want to access it directly, it may require some meditation, it may prayer, maybe going into this dream or astral state, some sort of shamanic journey, or synchronicity. But what our focus attention can be, and where we can allow our minds to go, and this is very much related to where Mercury in Aquarius is today, as we'll see, is this Two of Forces, right? You're like the willow tree, stable, strong, deep and wide roots, right? But flexible to move in the breeze, right? You have the sun, you have the water, you have the earth. There's even a bird here that shows us that spiritual transcendence that is, part of our experience as well. This is where we can really put our minds right now, is in being like the willow tree, stable and firm. And where is your root system? Well, it's this identity, or this embodiment of a total sorceress, badass bitch, right? She can balance it out. So regardless of your gender, your sexual identity, your biological sex, whatever, it doesn't matter. We all have our anima and animus. And so the animus, right? The female, the feminine, the divine feminine archetype that we all have within us. This is what we really can harness right now. And then we release this energy as this stable, strong, beautiful, and healthy willow tree that doesn't seem like it's doing anything, but in fact, everything about it is so strong and firm and healthy, right? Because again, like I said, this Queen of Swords in the middle here, it's not going to be easy for a lot of people. And we may have our own struggles through this process. And the futility of the Seven of Swords, I mean, you can't make this up. I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like I can't plan it any better than the random readings that I do. Here is the moon in Aquarius, which it's where it will be today. Especially the last decan of Aquarius, the last 3 degrees. Here's our Seven of Swords. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because you see that it's pointing towards the Queen of Swords, okay? We're about to get collectively, right, very either intentionally confused, right, deceit, trickery, and cheating. This is what this card represents, right? But the light here is the unmasking of illusions and disguises. There's going to be a whole new level of this, right? Now, some people, it's going to be the same level that we've been working with for the last 2 years plus, right? Some people have been on this journey for a really long time of, pulling back the curtain, so to speak. And so they will likely be much more of a collective pulling back the curtain. But the thing about this card is that, yes, it unmasks illusions and deceit. But the thing, you see all of the other swords that are surrounding the middle sword. That's the futility, right? Like no matter what you try to do, what you try to juggle and disguises and trickery and deceit and cheating, all of those things, despite those attempts, it's the futility of truth that is not able to be penetrated. And if you look really closely, you can see that, none of the tips of the swords really quite, well, they kind of do. They look like they've actually made marks on the sword all the way up and down, but they don't impact its structural integrity at all. And it's like a sword trying to stab a sword. It is futile, right? It's totally futile. So, and you can get very entangled in conflicting tendencies with this card, and you see how it's faced. It's faced into the middle. So there is a futility that is going to be directly related, I would say, to what's happening at the heart of the matter in this Queen of Swords Swords reversed, right? People really either stuck in la la land because they can't come back down to reality, and that's because there's no earth involved in the Queen of Swords, or they turn on themselves or other people as a result of the unmasking, right? It's futile. No matter what mind games you try to play with yourself, or that and also, doesn't matter what level of psychological operation you are employing, regardless if you think it's to steer humanity in the right direction or not, it's all going to come out and it's completely futile. And this, I feel like, is what this 10 of Discs has been referencing this whole time, is right. There is a very material cycle coming to an end and a new one beginning, and the mental gymnastics that people may be continuing to participate in order to deal with it is just remarkable and ultimately futile. And the moon in Aquarius today, by the time it passes Saturn and moves into the third decan, right, 20 to 30 degrees Aquarius, is going to be it's going to be very enlightening in some ways, and also, like I said, there is unmasking and disguises being pulled away, and the futility of the mind games, but that doesn't make it any less like powerful and or destructive. And with two sevens in the reading, that seems pretty clear to me that there is an adjustment moment that is slated to be on the menu, right? And it's a good thing, right? That 7 is our opportunity to surrender to source and to allow for some sort of divine intervention on some level. So when we look at our guidance, this is a reminder here of the Ark of the Covenant, number 11, right? The twin flame number. Is reversed here. So just in case you need a reminder, or if you're having a hard time with the balancing act that the Queen of Forces participates in, just remember that, maybe you've broken the contract with your higher self and you've knowingly chosen to be directed by your fears and more like base emotional needs, and not actually coming into true communion with what you are here to do at a soul level. So it's important that you renew that covenant in word and deed. Word and deed. Word and deed. I cannot stress this enough. You can say shit all day long about what you believe and think, but it's your actions that are going to matter. And they can be really basic actions. They don't have to be these grand gestures of anything, but you have to actually act on them. Somehow, you can, like I said, I can sit here and say things all day. The reason that I have a pages full of testimonials at this point is because I act on those things that I say, and they actually bear fruit and have a real outcome. So this is one way that you can renew that commitment. You can renew it all day, but if you don't act on it, then it's what's the point, right? So I think that if there is some measure of feeling out of balance, or you're like, I don't know how to do this, right? This is a reminder. This is a reminder to get back into renewal with your soul contract, right? Your contract and your covenant with Source and your soul and your mission, your starseed mission in particular. And with the cheetah involved, I mean, here's another feline with this Lyran starseed thing, and the signature of the Lyran starseed. It's very independent, right? Empowered and independent, just like the mountain goat, right? They don't travel in packs, and neither do most predatory cats. They don't travel in packs. The only ones are lions. Lions travel in prides, right? They have large social groups, but other than that, they don't have them. They are empowered and they act in accordance to their, what needs to be done. So the cheetah is got a lot of speed to it, right? Get clear on your intention, stay focused, and moved quickly. So sometimes we get caught up in all these delay tactics, and don't put too much, stress on yourself about that. Yes, we can all look at the way we sabotage ourselves in our own way, but just so you know that there are many delay tactics and landmines that have been set for all of us to keep us from actually communing with our soul's covenant and contract. So we'll play it safe. We'll have these delay tactics, right? We need to move with passion and purpose and grace, just like this Queen of Forces. She has all of those things combined. So if you are, if you aren't struck, if this Ark of the Covenant, if you're like, I know what I'm here to do, I am fully engaged in my mission, then this cheetah is going to be like, go, right? Just go, get on with it, whatever it is, move quickly to achieve your goal. There's no time to waste. This is going to be this is all at a subtle, subconscious level where we are drawing our power from. And also, too, if you are not clear on your intention, the Ark of the Covenant reversed, this is what you have to do. You have to get clear on your intention. And again, it doesn't have to be these grand gestures. It can be anything that is in alignment with your soul's purpose. Even if it's just, I want to be more familiar and build a relationship with my soul's purpose. And that's something that I can help you with directly. That's what I do, right? Through the various modalities. So, and you ultimately know. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. What we do is I facilitate the activation of that, right? Through different things. So when it comes to our conscious attention, though, let's move up here. Right, the willow, we're being firm and supportive, but also flexible, right? We have everything we need around us. And remember the rattlesnake, the experience that you're presently going through is an initiation, right? And so it's important to realize that there is a purpose for us remaining strong and firm, having these vast root systems that are stabilizing us, but also allowing us to draw the waters of our soul, right? All of the things that the Two of Forces represents. To remember that even if we're struggling right now, it's part of the process of our soul's growth and initiation into healer. And I would say facilitator at this point, because most healers are really we're moving into the age of Aquarius, right? And so we all have to be responsible equally for ourselves now in order to create the highest version of the human collective. And there's a lot of other agendas along this age of Aquarius that are trying to be enacted. So, but we all have to take responsibility for ourselves. And the role as a healer is really starting to shift into facilitator rather than somebody actually, doing the healing work for anyone else. That was definitely a Pisces type of thing because when we're all together in the thing, there are those who have been initiated into the role as a healer, a teacher, a guru that then allows for the souls to wake up and to heal. But with Aquarius, we have to all have an equal participation in this process. And so I would argue facilitator rather than a healer. And I think anybody who's still doing any kind of esoteric or energetic healing work or shamanic work right now is already hip to this. Like, we already know that our job is to facilitate rather than to do anything for anybody. And if you're still in that mode, like, it's on its way out, just so you know. Like, you won't be able to really maintain that for much longer. So if you are struggling to stay balanced, remember that then there's something there to teach you how to do it, because you're here to be part of this process as a guide and as a facilitator and as a healer, right? You still end up helping people heal as a result of your work. Now, the Seven of Scrolls, here's our other seven, right? Here is our intricacies and industry. This is the one step at a time. Pay attention to the details, be diligent with the specifics, and have follow through. Small steps are a huge part of this large process as well. And so, again, if you're struggling and you aren't sure what you're doing or why, you can give your focused attention and your thought processes to be focused on being this stable force like the willow, and realize that that in itself is a small step on a very large project, okay? And you want to measure twice and cut once, right? Here is our builder, our master builder. He's got this little plumb bob. He's making sure that it's all level, right? It's all level. You have to make sure that it's level. If you go, if you try to build things too fast, or you try to, not see the forest for the trees, then, you're either going to leave this unfinished, or when you do finish it, it's going to be garbage, right? It's going to fall over. There's no structural integrity. So that's something to consider as well. I do feel like that we are, embarking on territory where it's going to start being really hard for certain people, and other people are going to be like, all right, this is what I signed up for. Let's go. And if you're one of those people, then realize you're here to be of assistance and a facilitator, and to hold down the resonance of the fifth density of where we're going into, okay? So let's take a quick look here at the astrology. Well, it won't be that quick, but I want to give you some insight here into the astrology, of course. But then I also want to show you some of the cool stuff around Orpheus and Eurydice and the use of vibration and music, because this is a really cool connection to Vega today. So first we'll get going here on our astrology and just look at the basic transits, because the moon is still moving through Aquarius, and that means that there are some interesting connections. So speaking of Aquarius, let's talk about Mercury first, because Mercury is going to move to 3 to 4 degrees of, well, let's go right now, just to show you. Okay, so we know that the moon has already passed its sextile to Chiron. It's just minutes away now from its square to Uranus. This is a big one that we'll talk about. And of course, it's going to meet Saturn right after that, sextile Mars. All of these things I will talk in detail about, as I usually do. But one thing that I want to talk about here is Mercury in Aquarius. This is the Sabian symbol and the general energy that actually inspired today's transmission title, and the larger process, or the larger context of Orpheus and Lyra. So we're in early Aquarius now, right? The Hindu yogi demonstrates his healing powers. This is the Sabian symbol of where Mercury is at, 3 to 4 degrees of Aquarius, right? So it's the disciplined use of spiritual energies, right? It's our responsibility, for those who've been able to tap into this of as the water bearer. So you're either naturally doing it because you have strong Aquarius, you've been doing it as a result of everybody has Aquarius somewhere in their chart, right? Your house, you have an Aquarian house somewhere. Even if you have an intercepted house, right, which means there's no cusp on Aquarius technically, you're still going to have an area of Aquarius in your chart. But those who have been able to tap this very vast reservoir of spiritual forces, right, which is the Pisces element, it's our responsibility to focus the spiritual energy and to assist those who haven't gotten there yet, right? This is very much about what I just talked about. So Mercury is the realm of the mind. And so when we think about where our conscious attention is, where our thought processes are drawn to, the top of the reading that we just did, which is about focusing of your spiritual energy, being like that willow tree that is able to draw the power of the waters of our soul, and then able to not just be stable force. That's really important. But what is a tree? What does all plant life do? It respirates oxygen, right? It takes in carbon dioxide and respirates oxygen out. And so there is something very powerful about that as well. But this is where Mercury is today. And it's the idea that in our minds, in our conceptions, our thoughts, our communication with people, right? It's about the focusing of that spiritual energy through the realm of our mind in order to really assist people. Because the goal of humanity, really, the highest version of Aquarius and the goal of humanity within the Aquarian archetype is composed, humanity is meant to be composed of self-motivated and responsible individuals, right? Who are freely associating according to harmonic patterns that we see visually in geometry, right? And that is the highest version of Aquarius. I love that. That's from Dame Rudyard, right? Out of the astrological mandala, right? This is one of my primary astrology teachers. He's not alive. I've just read all of his, I'm going through all of his stuff. I wouldn't say I've read it all. but I am in the process of reading a lot of his material, and the astrological mandala is out of print and is probably the closest thing to a Bible that I'm going to have, other than the actual Bible itself. So it's important that we are allowing this is a moment here where our minds are able to really associate with this particular focusing of spiritual energy. Okay, so this is a really big deal. And that means that also too, when Mercury is in its retrograde, it's going to come back over this point, because Mercury is going to slip back into Capricorn during its retrograde this winter. And so just keep that in mind too. We'll have another opportunity to go back over this point. So just kind of put a pin in it, and see how you're thinking about things right now, and see how they may change when Mercury is having us do like a proofreading of our own mental constructs when it comes back over this point. That's going to be a very interesting time, I think. So let's look at the transits themselves, right? We looked at the moon is going to be in a sextile, or had been in a sextile this morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So not that long ago, a couple hours ago, a few hours. Comes into a sextile with Chiron in Aries. Okay, so when we're able to act out the vision, right? When we're able to take our ideal or a symbolic ideal and turn it into something tangible and real within ourselves, we can feel it, we can intuit this experience. It's something that is residing within our emotional landscape. This is something that we can apply to and invest into Chiron and Aries. That is, if we have not been pulled away by Chiron's influence, which is, here are all the ways you can feel like shit about yourself and feel guilty and ashamed for who you are, right? Or this is, if you've gotten away from the triggers of the inner child wounding that have just been relentless, then this moon in Aquarius in the sextile is like, here's the energy. You can see how you can take the symbolic representation that you've been focusing on with your own healthy ego consciousness and turn it into something very real, right? Turn it into something 3D, and take that not as like, that's a bad thing, because that's like saying that your ego is bad, right? I mean, anyway, it's just part of what we're doing. We should be honoring and blessing every stage we've gone through, instead of like, running away screaming from an experience that we're all here to have anyway. So this particular sextile was instrumental in giving us the impetus or the momentum to be like, okay, you can see yourself, you haven't been pulled, you've managed to stop being pulled into all of the triggers necessarily of who you are as a person, and really focusing on the potential of who you can be and to develop in. The moon is just like, all right, let's bring this together into this really magical configuration and activate it. And it goes from a symbol into something real. This is really powerful. I can feel it moving still. But the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely happening. So then the moon comes into a square with Uranus. And this is almost like a mutual reception. What does that mean? That means a mutual reception is when you have an aspect where one body, like the moon, is in Aquarius and is making an aspect with Uranus, for instance, like it is. And Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, so it's in the other planet sign. Now, the moon is not at home in Taurus, but it's exalted, so it's pretty close. And so it's not quite a mutual reception, technically, but it's very close, and it still holds the same, I think it still holds the same energy as a mutual reception, in that these two might be in a square with each other, but the square allows for more understanding than there would normally be in a square angle. And so the moon in 10 to 11 degrees Aquarius is territory we've already been through with Saturn, right? Which is during, it's in the silence. It's in it's time alone with God, right? A man receives, or a person receives. I used to try to like take the gender identified language out of these Sabian symbols, but then I realized that because the gendered identification in each of the symbols varies in itself, I kept it because I realized that when it says a man or a woman, it's talking about the masculine or the feminine polarity within the person, right? That is the aspect that is having the most interaction with this archetype. So anyway, during a silent hour, a man, which would be our masculine, receives a new inspiration, which may change his life. Because Aquarius is, in fact, a masculine sign. It is air. It has the yang and masculine quality to it. So we've already gone over this with Saturn, right? We've already been at this place with Saturn, this receiving a new inspiration. In fact, it like was so dense and so just kind of like authoritarian about it that it may have seemed like we weren't getting anything, right? Now the moon has crossed this point, happening pretty much right now, right? Let's see. Pretty much right now, and it is the same thing, the receiving the new inspiration. But now it's the moon, right? A lot easier to receive anything, especially inspiration with the moon. Now it is in a square to Uranus. You remember this square with Uranus on Christmas Eve and how for some people it was just like eruptive, right? So now we're going back over that, but it's the moon this time. So it's a lot more, there's a lot less edge to it, right? There's a lot less struggle to it. There is a lot more fluidity to it. And I would say a lot softer in some ways because of the moon, right? And so instead of Saturn involved. And so the inspiration, so there's still a square here. And where Uranus is now is a real challenge to all of us to cultivate the medium in which our ego consciousness really grows, because it's shifting all the time. How am I supposed to even figure out who I am when the very soil itself is constantly moving around, when the medium of our growth is never stable? Well, that's the trick of Uranus, right? That is the awakening of Uranus, is the fact that it makes these aspects so there's so much upheaval, and it's so unstable that you have no choice but to innovate or think outside of the box or evolve in that way. So there, even though there's this square here, there is, because one requires that we're actually actively participating in the medium of our growth, and the other is just be in the moment and you will receive what you need. The square here, I think, is really about our own emotional state, wanting to receive this inspiration, whereas it is being bombarded or being challenged with this very distinct shifting of a physical landscape, our currency, the things that we value in our material life. These are all Taurus themes. It's very much ruled by Venus. What's the value? What's the worth? Where's my comfortability? What are my assets? What are my resources? And when those are shifting and changing, and we can't even, the soil is constantly moving around and uprooting everything we plant there. It's really difficult. And so it's even harder to find an emotional stability enough to be like, let's just be, during this silent hour. Well, it's like having this tree try to stay stable when there are the plates and the seismic activity is constantly moving it. But this is where we're at, right? And Aquarius is outside of the realm of materialism. It is the energy that is pervasive through the human collective, not the physical material nature of our institutions. So while this is really seemingly like a struggle, it's not nearly as a battle as when it was Saturn square Uranus. And so maybe this is a really nice way to take the edge off of what otherwise would be a very difficult aspect of what's happening on the ground in the real world with what is actually valuable and meaningful to us, and then something that's seemingly impalpable but very real, and our ability to feel into it. So I just don't feel like it's nearly as really as disruptive as when it was Saturn. Now the moon comes and meets Saturn right after this, within just a couple of hours, right? And so it meets Saturn, and this is where we really, our emotions and our intuition gets very focused and disciplined, and we become our own barometer for what is coming, right? Natural course of progression, which is what a barometer is measuring the change in pressure, and then you can make a reasonable expectation of the weather based on that. Now Saturn's been sitting here being like, this is the way to prognosticate, right? Is just, you see the writing on the wall, you're looking at the barometer, you're like, oh, the pressure has changed. Now that's going to become something that we each have an opportunity to personally interface with this afternoon, or, late in the morning, depending on where you are, later in the day. This is going to be very strong, but there we go. That's what I was getting at. But it's going to be a little bit sobering, right? When the moon and Saturn come together, our emotions and our feelings become sobered, right? Because they are hitting a wall in some way. And so this is where the idea of the illusions falling away, that there's no really getting around, we can try to trick and disguise, but there's nothing that's going to take the place of actual causal progression. And Saturn has allowed us the stability within our own field and our own intuition to be like, okay, yes, I can feel now where it's going. I can really feel now where it's going. And this is why I say I know that it's very positive and there's a lot to look forward to right now, but there's also some realism that we have to take into account. One second, guys. Okay, so those are the main transits for today in terms of, I forgot, and then the sextile to Mars. Mars that has now moved into the second half of Sagittarius, because it goes from abstraction in the first half of Sag to the transference, right? The abstraction is the symbolic representation of the meaning of the human experience. The transference is literally the communication of the understanding, either through teaching, through direct gnosis and understanding. Transference can mean the transfer of energy, right? The catalyzing effect of the fire under the cauldron is the transfer of the energy to the chemical reaction. Excuse me. So this is where Mars is now. It's coming into this last, and it's, Mars is the agent of outward active manifestation, right? It is impulsive and warrior-like. So it's definitely going to transfer, like forcefully be transferring these abstractions in a way that is meant to act on self-interest, right? And in a warrior fashion. Now, that doesn't mean selfish. That just means self-interest, because that's what you do as an ego, right? And this is where a healthy ego is important, as opposed to no ego, because then you're just a clone, right? Or just like a shell. So it'll be very forceful. And the moon in Aquarius at the same point is about the ability to organize yourself of all these different aspects into one enterprise, right? Lots of different moving parts. This goes to that Seven of Scrolls, it feels like to me, the intricacies in industry. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of small things. There are a lot of aspects that we need to manage. Each of us needs to manage. And again, sextile to Mars, it's like if there's no sense of what it takes emotionally and feeling based to manage the transference of abstraction, then we will follow the path of least resistance. Like our psyche will follow, our natural urges and psyche will follow what society has presented to us, rather than fight and dig for it on our own, right? So when we are able, I would say, to manage all of the energy of the collective as a whole within ourselves, right? We feel it and we have a personalized experience. Then again, we are able to invest this energy into what Mars is really allowing for, which is the well, Mars is very outwardly, you know what I mean? Outwardly moving. It's cardinal fire, right? It's the spark of creation. And Mars is acting on the meaning and specifically the transference of that meaning. So we have to have the capacity within us emotionally and intuitively to manage the whole picture as opposed to any one constituent part. Because otherwise, if we just manage the stream that Mars may be shooting at us and not see the big picture, well, this is again where our psyche will be easily led into a particular will be led to just take the path of least resistance because it's a lot easier that way. And it's nobody's fault. This is just the way the human has been constructed socially and psychologically, I would argue, over a long period of time. And it certainly could be the result of the natural human condition too. I can't say that for sure. That's something that I think Jung would be, is a good resource to understand more. But this is really suggesting by the end of the day, like our own internalized ability to manage all of these parts within ourselves so that we can actually get what Mars is putting down, right? If that makes sense? Because he's putting something important down. There's something very important on this barge, right? But we also want to be able to not rely on it exclusively either. And so this is, again, part of being able to manage all of these constituent parts and feel the big picture within ourselves. So what I want to share with you today is, besides all that, and then I know this is going to go over a little bit, but there's just so much going on that it's really important to share it. So one of the things I want to bring to your attention is fixed star Vega, because this is where the sun is today. Oh yeah, this is Vega right here. This is Vega right here, the actual star of Vega. It's massive. It's massive. And if you are, above roughly 50 degrees in the latitude, northern latitude, you're going to see Vega all year long. It's massive. You can see it with the naked eye very easily. It stands out. That and Arcturus are very obvious in the night sky. So Vega is huge. So when we look at Vega in the constellation of Lyra, we are going to see that Vega is in the handle right here, isn't it? Vega is in the handle of the lyra, and the lyra it's a musical instrument. So who played the lyra or the lute? Well, that's very interesting as well. So let me see if I can find. Well, I don't think I have any more pictures of it, but I will go into kind of the fixed star astrology of Vega too, because it's very it's very interesting. Hold on one second. Let me find it. Here we go. So the thumbnail image for today is Orpheus. Orpheus is a Greek character in mythology, and Orpheus played the lyra, played the lute. In fact, he was the son of a king, like a Greek king, and Calliope, right? And was trained in music by Apollo, right? Apollo was like the music, among other things, right? But music was also one of Apollo's main things. And actually got that power and that ability from Mercury, who was naturally able to play and create music. And Apollo's like, I want that. Give that to me. I want that. That's a different story. So we see Vega is in the handle of Lyra, and we're talking about Lyran starseed. So Orpheus is known for lots of different things. Obviously known for playing the lyra, the lute, and his incredible musical ability. So he's one of the very few Greek mythological characters that was able to go into the underworld, because his wife, Eurydice, she, I can't remember exactly. I have to, this was a very, kind of like a crash course right before I came on in terms of Orpheus and reminding myself. But one of the things that he was able to do is that he was so, grieving over the loss of his wife that he actually was able to go into the underworld and charm Pluto / Hades with his music playing. right? And bring her back. And we've talked about how there aren't that many individuals in the Greek mythos that were able to go in, and Mercury being one of them as well. So that's very interesting. But Vega, this is where the sun is today. Vega, fixed star Vega, and will be tomorrow, right? It's within a degree orb of exact conjunction today. And so it'll be exactly conjunct by tomorrow. And so in fixed star, like ancient astrology, Vega actually means in the Arabic word for Vega, it means falling or landing. And so it comes from the falling eagle. This is what Vega represents, the falling eagle, and is one of the 15 Bohemian fixed stars. Now, this really just was interesting to me. So its image as one of these fixed stars is, there's a couple. Number one, a vulture, which came up synchronistically today with a conversation. A hen, which is connected to Alcyon, right, in terms of imagery, and that's where the North Node is, or a traveler. And the tiger in Chinese astrology is often considered a traveling star. Because, a tiger is going to be moving across its territory in order to hunt and do what it does. But traveling star. So all three of these images are connected to Vega. Traveler, hen, right? And Alcyon is like the main Pleiadian sister, and they often call her the hen. And then the vulture, which comes and cleans up the mess, right? And there's a lot of really favorable energy with fixed star Vega just in astrology, right? Beneficence, being idealistic, hopeful, it's refined, there's changeability, immutability, and it makes the natives, when it says natives in astrology, it means the people who you're reading for in their natal chart. It gives a grave, sober, and sometimes outwardly pretentious kind of aspect to it, but it also is it's one of the brightest stars, and it's got the nature of Venus, so it's very, and Babylonians called Vega the star of the queen of life. It's really so connected to all the Lyran starseed signature traits. And Orpheus is very much connected to Vega because because he was the one who played the lyra, and able to get his wife back from the underworld by charming Hades. There's just so much here in the harp and with Orpheus and his ability to tame the animals. That's another part of, if you look at the thumbnail imagery for the video and that particular rendition, right? He's surrounded by the animals. Orpheus, with his musical lyre, is able to charm the animals, as well as the god of the underworld, and able to get his wife back. So there's something incredibly powerful here, not only about music and vibration, but also the ability to really manage and be in unison and alignment and harmony with the natural world, and to master it. Orpheus mastered the realm of vibration through his music to the point where he could actually go in and out of the underworld. And remember our new moon, right? The fire that is the representation of the simultaneous experience that transcends death and rebirth, because in fire you get both experiences. This is very much a Capricorn thing, because Capricorn is the unfolding of the physical reality, which is ultimately vibration in geometric form, just like music, right? Music can be written out into a pattern. If you know how to read music and you write music and you understand it, then you know that it's written into a pattern. Same thing with the playing of music. It's vibration. And Orpheus is just such a great patron right now for all of us, because it's our ability to be not only in alignment, but also our mastery of vibration in and of itself, natural vibration that will allow us to not only transcend our own mortal coil, but literally be able to go into the underworld and bring back out that which we love, which is going to be really important to recognize when the South Node and K2, or K2, the same thing, move into Scorpio. It's going to be very important to not get stuck in that realm, but also realize the power of Scorpio as well. And so there's just so much that's going on with this today that I really wanted to draw some attention to it. So the Lyran starseeds, Lyran starseeds, one of the traits that is associated with Lyran starseeds is incredible love of music and dancing and any physical activity. So sexual activity is a big one. Lyran starseeds, they enjoy the experience. And so sometimes it's really hard to pin them down into like monogamous relationships. And it's not because it's nothing more than just the enjoyment of the experience with, all kinds of different people. So that's one of the ways that the Lyran starseed traits are expressed. But it's this ability to be in alignment and to master the vibration of material reality that is truly the Lyran starseed magic, right? And Orpheus and his lyre, or Orpheus and his lute, and his ability to calm the beasts, to charm even the god of death in order to bring his wife back, is a really important patron right now. And I just want to draw attention because this is where the sun is in Vega. And even Venus is in Lyran starseed territory right now in her retrograde transit. She's at 21 to 22 degrees Capricorn, which is 21 degrees is a Lyran starseed marking. 21 degrees of Capricorn. So she's even in this territory as well, realizing the value of failure and defeat in terms of learning. I mean, if you've ever practiced a musical instrument, you know that you suck at it at first, and it takes a lot of practice to get good. And if your self-worth is wrapped up in your ability to do this, then it's very easy to just give up, right? And a Lyran starseed doesn't give up. They never give up. They will do whatever it takes to get to their goal, right? It's because they're not afraid of the experience, and they know. And Venus right now is incredibly instrumental, haha, no pun intended, with this process of reminding us and taking a very deep inventory, and to realize that if we feel like that maybe we have been, hoodwinked in some way. Remember that 7 of Swords, right? The unmasking, the illusions. If we feel like we have been hoodwinked, if we have been tricked, if we have been cheated in some way, right? If we're coming to this realization in terms of our institutional reality, Venus is in her grace and her wisdom in Capricorn, especially in this retrograde, is really leading us to gracefully resign ourselves, not to our failure, but to how much we get to learn as a result of this. So if you feel like that you have been engaged with certain influencers or a certain perspective that you're starting to come to realize, like, whoa, not only is this not what I thought it was, but I realized too that I've been used through this particular source of information for a specific reason, to not get down on yourself necessarily, but to feel bad about it, or to double down on it because you can't deal with the fact that I can't even tell you how many times I've been through this process where I'm like, oh shit, that was not what I thought it was. But then you go back and you're like, wow, I ignored that red flag and that red flag and that red flag. I ignored all of these signals that my gut was giving me, or the synchronicities were giving me, because it didn't align with what I wanted to believe. And Venus right now, it is just, a Lyran starseed is not going to like fold up because they fucked up sometime. They're going to be like, whoa, I screwed that up. Wow, look how much I've learned from this situation. So there is so much integrity, and there's so much empowerment, and there's just so much like power and leadership involved in those types of dynamics. And we're being so supported right now to really step into that type of power and to manage not only our own vibration, but to be in alignment with the actual material divine matrix that we want to be part of. And some of us are spiritual, using that spiritual mastery, or that we have gained as a result of our work and our service and our discipline, to actually not only be in alignment in ourselves, but to attract and to resonate, to bring other people into alignment too. It's really, really powerful. So I'm going to leave it there because we've gone on plenty. And that is enough information for today, my friends. I'm excited to have been able to bring this to you. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you are interested in any kind of reading or energy work to support your process through these unprecedented times, right? This is such a buzzword. You can, oops, sorry guys, a little too early. You can follow any of the links in the description box below. I would suggest that you not waste your time with Facebook, because I'm getting rid of my Facebook account and I've already started the process of making the transition. So I'll be on Telegram exclusively when it comes to social media. BitChute, of course. I'm going to be moving the streams away from YouTube, but the website is there. You can get on my mailing list through the website. You can email me directly. That's all in the description box below. And if you go to my website, you can get a sense of everything that I have to offer and what my services are, and we can and if you don't see anything that's like, I'm kind of interested in this, but you don't have something set up, just email me, because I do a lot of custom work for people too. And that's the great thing about having such a small little community like this right now, is that my ability to interface with people one-on-one and really help. I see them for who they are, and it helps you see yourself for who you truly are as well. So, and that's one of the great things that the work together can do. So you can go to the description box below, and of course, just stick around at the end of the video if you want more information or how to support this work financially through Subscribestar. I love you guys. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow for the daily. Have a great day. Enjoy Mercury in Aquarius. It's a pretty awesome time right now. So love you guys. God bless. See you tomorrow. Bye.